Does anyone remember this character at this point? Because, wow, did we get something worth talking about. Whew. Now, with all the Book 6 news that just happened, it's kind of ridiculous that this guy even exists, and I am definitely excited to see what I can show you and what you might actually put him to good use. A nice freebie for us.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video, and we are finally in Book 6. And with that, I guess, comes with a Blast, which is one of the probably best F2P units we've had in a long time. In fact, the last time we had such a high quality F2P unit was probably Young Innis. So it's been a pretty long while. Some have been like decent here and there, but Yanfei is worth talking about. Now, the actual surprise to like this whole video that I'm about to talk about is Yanfei is actually fairly simple to use, very strong, and very nice of an investment because he's a Grand Hero battle. Like this is actually kind of astounding that this exists, considering we've had stuff like Red Tome Infantries, Blue Lance Flyers, Blue Lance Cabs, just like the biggest memes of investments or freebies that we had for a very long time, even between GHBs and TTs. Even Ninja Shamir, which was like one of the most recent additions, was technically higher BST, but she doesn't have a preference, and her lack of ability to get to 10 flowers also made her like pretty much comparable to Hannah. This guy though, yeah, this guy's a bit different. Couple reasons. But anyways, I'm gonna start off this video with a couple things. We're gonna definitely look at the art, we're gonna look at some builds, I'm gonna explain why those builds work, and it's gonna be short and sweet. Honestly, I don't feel like I need to really over expand on why Yanfei is good. Most of you probably already know without even watching this video, but it's more or less a reminder why he is actually good and why he likely will be an investment for many, including potentially myself, since I do have like 5,000 grails. So we'll see, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, so I'm going to start with asking you to smash the like button and sub if you haven't already. As always, that really does help bring out the reach of this channel and keeps me producing content. So do your part. Let's go. So I'm going to take a quick, brief look at Yanfei's art, just give my brief opinion on that. And as we can see, he's actually fairly similar to Sayri from before. I feel like they match styles. They're brother and sister, obviously. I didn't actually expect someone like Yanfei to end up being as potentially good as this ends up being. The art is pretty cool. I like the effects added there, and the swords are definitely nice. It is unfortunate that you don't actually see the dual wielding swords. I feel like that is a touch that they could have done. I mean, stuff like Ninja Hannah exists where there's dual wielders, so I wish they might have done something like that, but I understand that his Amatsu is technically a single sword and the other one is probably some additional sword, as you can see like in the art there. Obviously the second sword isn't Amatsu, and I initially thought that he would have had the same weapon as his sister, which obviously wasn't as good, but it's not the case. And as we see actually right there, along with the stat spread over there, that's legit. Okay, so we haven't had a distant counter like GHB since Camu. Like it's literally been 4 years since we had a distant counter GHB unit. Now I know we've had like Legendary Ike, we've had Fjorm, we've had Eltina, I believe, so a couple of freebies definitely have existed, but yeah, that is a distant counter weapon. His only real condition here is solo. That's not unreasonable because you probably want to use him that way anyways and stuff like AR and Arena. It's not that hard to do. So solo is your like condition here. And that's for the damage reduction effect. So he's got distant counter. He's got additional speed 3. He's got damage reduction based on speed. And it's as expected. It's basically just DR in the weapon plus this encounter, which is really good as it is. So yeah, for a freebie, that is solid. Not to mention, of course, he has a speed super boon, and he has a really good stat spread. High offensive stats, and you know, 185 stats basically gives him a decent defensive stat spread in this day and age anyways, right? So solid stat spread, solid weapon, solid freebie GHB, and gonna stand out obviously because of this preference weapon, making him stand out. If he didn't have that, he would have been less desirable. Quite a bit less desirable. Now on top of that, he does actually end up coming with Kestrel Stance 2 and Threat and Attack Defense 2, so those can link into their higher level skills, such as Kestrel Stance 3, which is actually one of the better A skills in my opinion. Like most carries are going to want to use that nowadays with disencounter weapons in one way or another. And threat and attack defense 2 does technically link up into the higher level one, although I feel it is outclassed by menace skills nowadays. Like, menaces are going to be better than threatens, so that is kind of whatever. But the Kestrel Stance 2 chain fodder is solid. I wouldn't really recommend foddering him for most players though, because again, he is going to be a solid investment, I think, for most people. And that's what we'll talk about right now as we jump into some of the builds. Now, surprisingly, he's fairly simple to use. And the reason he's so simple to use is because carries want to essentially just combine different effects. What this means is, like, you want to combine null follow-up, damage reduction, potentially null C disrupt, which isn't featured here, and potentially stuff like lulls or wrath. So there is actually quite a bit of build flexibility in how you might want to use Yanfei, and you can like kind of use what's in your barracks. Now, Kestrel Stance 3 also comes from his sister, which you can get from codes in the path 2, and we're about to get about 3,000 codes from book 6 anyways, so that could be a solid way to actually upgrade him quite a bit. Now, with build flexibility here, it mostly comes down to what partners you have, right? So in the first build, for example, he has null follow-up and damage reduction, and he's running a steady Breath seal. But if you use someone like Lancina, you don't need to use a steady Breath seal, and you might opt to just give him more attack speed solo anyways in the seal, for example, or a form of healing like Mystic Boost. Both are going to be pretty good. I do think using specials is the way to go, and that's going to be either through Ruptured Sky, preferably, or Moonbow to make sure he secures those kills. I've given more of a budget option in the second build here for air offense, which would be using Wrath. You can also use something like Lull and Null C Disrupt as well, are all options. I actually believe that Wrath can be a decent like budget option because he already has a damage reduction in his weapon, and then just using Wrath, he'll likely take enough damage to fire off Wraths consistently on retaliation. Now, you definitely want to combine that build with Lancina in some form to get that special acceleration off, or again, steady Breath seal if you have to do something else. Since his weapon does give him DR though, you don't really need Flame. You could combine it, but since the stacking of damage reduction effects is multiplicative instead of additive, it's less effective to be stacking damage reduction through multiple sources. That's why I'm not showing like a Spurn build here, or Repel, or Close Call, or Frenzy, or anything like that, because you're just getting less value doing that, and you should just use the DR on his weapon and combine it with another powerful B skill. So as I said, lulls, null follow-up, null C disrupt, and even Wrath is solid B skill options. So use what you got, make it work, and he can work pretty well as an air offense carry without a doubt with the right support. I think he's solid there, at least in the bonus seasons coming up, and potentially even if you wanted to use him, let's say at like +2, he's still going to be pretty good there. Now finally, obviously one thing that is quite important here is the fact that he is 185 BST with his super boon and speed. Now this again makes him pretty solid as an anti-meta unit because he has that A slot open and it's not locked to a dual skill. This means not only does he score really well for most players, it's the old school like duo units where they were 195 to start. He is at that point now, but he also has a preference weapon and he's quite competitive if you'd ask me. Now his lack of a slaying weapon does mean that a times pulse in the sea can be used and he would still score optimally, but the same way you use him in AR is the same way you use him in Arena, which is combining a bunch of these effects. Null follow-up, times pulse now is pretty solid, and potentially even joint drive, but either way, make sure you keep in mind his solo effect, and he's going to do a pretty solid job. Finally, not shown here is his potential to also run Gale Force builds. Now I'm a little bit less of a I'm gonna like promote this a little bit less because honestly he has a distant counter weapon and his damage reduction does imply that he wants to get hit to get value out of that. He can run Gale Force though. You can run something like, let's say, Close Call on the B skill with like Times Pulse and Gale Force, and then have like a dual phase ability, not shown here, but you can technically do that with Yanfei, and it can also work. So there is definitely a lot of flexibility here, and he's going to be good in multiple different modes. So yeah, congrats to you guys who are patient enough, maybe have the grails, and finally believe that we would get a solid GHB at some point. Probably, guys, coming up in future videos, we're going to see stuff like Summoner Duels and Summoner Duels builds shown in here, or how I think of their viability as characters as Summoner Duels, as I obviously play into the mode and see how competitive or fun it is. So expect that in future videos and future analysis as well, but this is of course with the current relevant competitive modes, which is AR and Arena as always. So yeah, thanks for watching as always guys, short and sweet. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, smash the like button and sub. If you love me or you love the content I produce, and I hope you do, that's why you're watching, Patreon is the best way to do it. I'm live on Twitch almost every day, but probably about 5 times a week or so. So come check me out there if you want to see some live gameplay with all of this, of course, being in action in different ways. Thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Much love. Weapon refined soon. Peace.
It's over.